And it looks like we're ready to go, so we're going to kick things over to JoeDamillio with his run of Super Castlevania IV. Best of luck.
Rolling in. Indeed.
Rolling in. All right, well, this is Super Castlevania IV, and thanks to the generous donations, Joe's going to be playing this on hard mode tonight, also known as second loop. So he's doing this short little password here just to be able to play on hard mode without having to actually beat the game normally first. So go ahead and give a countdown. Countdown will be to actually starting the timer. Since we time this by character control, then Joe will start when he needs to. So let's get going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! All right, so the main thing to know about second loop hard mode in Castlevania IV is that there's more enemies, and a lot of the enemies have more health, but you do not take more damage, and the bosses are unchanged. So we're definitely going to be seeing that right here in 1-1, just because in an any % run, he'd be taking a lot of damage boosts forward, but just because there's so many more enemies, he has to refrain from that in a lot of places just to conserve health.
Yeah, most noteworthy is that a lot of screens have additional flying enemies that just make your life a lot tougher in hard mode. Like, you'll notice the additional bats flying on this screen compared to normal mode.
Yeah, he's going to be doing a lot of subtle manipulations of the spawn points for bats all throughout the run, too. All right, so Joe just picked up the cross, which, if everything goes well, is going to be the one and only sub-weapon used throughout the run, just because it does good damage. Travels all the way to the edge of the screen before coming back, so it's pretty easy to get multiple hits with the right placement, and he's soon going to be accumulating. Well, there's his double shot, soon to be followed by a triple shot multiplier.
The little trick that he just did was a little ring glitch, a little ring clip where he just gives more momentum forward. It gives him, definitely saving more time.
And an invincibility potion just for safety and speed in this room because of the extra skeletons and bats. Those bone pillars take 4 hits instead of 3 in hard mode, so dealing with them is a pretty big challenge in the category.
A lot more snake bundles in this area as well.
The one thing about this game is the items in the hearts, they're all fixed. There's no RNG whatsoever, no axe drops, compared to like the original Castlevania 4s, the Castlevania games.
Yes, this screen is quite a bit harder because of the club trolls hanging out in the windows too. He actually is doing some pretty tight cross throws in order to be able to kill them before they hit him when he jumps past. Very nice.
We are going to need quiet time coming up on the boss in a second because Joe uses an audio cue for it.
Yeah, as far as when to start throwing his crosses at routing. Very nice.
Nice.
So yeah, that's the power of the triple shot cross in this game. With the right height and timing, it just wrecks all the bosses in this game in seconds. Nice Triforce, by the way, too.
Yeah, that's mandatory. You have to always try to be swag when you finish every stage and collect the orb.
All right, so there's a bit of randomness at the start of stage 2 with the zombie hands poking out of the ground as far as when and where they spawn. It doesn't take damage if one of them grabs him, but it does make him stop, and that's bad in a speedrun. So he's kind of jumping strategically to try to minimize his chances of getting grabbed. Cross placements there to get damage in on these armadillo things. Finish the job with his web. It's worth pointing out that just one of the things that really separates this game from like the Castlevanias on the NES is just how many options you have for movement and combat. Like you can whip in 8 directions, you can change your jump mid-air. And I think that all makes this game a lot easier casually, but it makes it really, really hard to speedrun because when you're trying to make use of all of those movement and combat abilities optimally, it's really, really difficult. For this particular screen, the frogs are the main random things he has to deal with because they have 2 different jump patterns.
hard mode just has so many enemies. You can't see them all. They're just waiting for you, and you're just gonna get ambushed. So the amount of crosses that Joe's throwing is very necessary.
Yeah, and because of how many more enemies there are too, his heart management, heart being ammo for his crosses and other sub-weapons is very important too. So say hi to Medusa, and say bye to Medusa.
Bye, Medusa.
Bye.
So stage 2 is pretty different in that the boss is in the middle of the stage instead of at the end, so he doesn't actually have to collect an orb to end the stage like normal. And because of that, he actually gets to carry over his hearts into stage 3. So because he needs more hearts to kill more enemies in hard mode, he's actually doing so. Like in an any % run, he'd want to not have any hearts, so he could just walk right through the heart stealing hand at the start. But yeah, he wants to preserve some.
Yeah, especially for stage 3 coming up, the stage is really long, and you need every heart that you need gives you all the ammunition you need for the crosses. And yeah,
if it isn't obvious, the river he's in has a natural current to it that either pushes him forward or backwards, and he had to just reversed. So now he's jumping to move faster. All right, nice. On to stage 3. So again, the bone pillars are a lot more annoying in hard mode because of having 4 health instead of 3.
Also of note are the Mudmen. If you happen to get hit by one before you break it apart, it does 1 extra damage compared to a broken apart Mudman. So where possible, if you're going to take a hit, you want to try to break them open first just to save that extra bar of health for later damage.
Yeah, and he's going to generally be making that decision based on whether they're moving left or right. Yeah, and then I believe the fireballs also do less damage than the Mudmen, so we used one of those in order to get invincibility frames to walk past.
A lot of extra bone pillars all over the place in this stage.
Yeah, playing it a little safe with the stalactites and the last Mudman.
Oh. Sorry. At least for taking the death, there's definitely not a good idea. But at least in this stage, there's a backup cross that he could definitely pick up if he chooses that way, or in the next screen.
Yeah, because unfortunately, when you take a death in this game, it not only costs you your whip upgrades, but also your sub-weapon and any double or triple shot multipliers. So if he ever does take a death, he does need to switch to some backup plans to regain his cross, or in some cases possibly even use a different sub-weapon if there isn't a backup cross within reach. And then the way you get your double or triple shot is just by getting hits with the sub-weapon against candles or enemies. So as soon as he gets his cross back, he's going to start using it as much as possible to get his multipliers back. Because again, those multipliers affect how many crosses he can have on screen at once. And in order to do all the optimal strats in this run, he needs to have the triple.
Yeah, the exact amount is 10 enemies or candle hits with the sub-weapon.
All right.
So then on to stage 3, which is stage 3 too, which is mainly a vertical climbing stage. Yeah, ordinarily you'd do a boost off that little fuzzy to get up that platform faster, but I believe getting the backup cross requires foregoing that. So yeah, now he's going to start just getting as many hits in again as possible to regain his multiplier. And then coming up here, we've got our first really major ring glitch, and got it first try, easy peasy.
Easy.
That saves a lot of time in stage 3 too, because of cutting out having to go all the way to the left and back. So even if it takes multiple attempts to get the ring glitch by jumping over the ring and whipping down to push away from it, it's well worth it.
Yeah, and what makes that work is when you grab onto a ring in this, the game kind of tries to snap you to the max whip distance in relation to the ring. So when you whip it from above, it kind of just pushes you straight vertically and doesn't know whether to make you drop left or right. Good eyeball
Very
boost.
Nice. There. Fortunate thing about Castlevania IV too is that it's a pretty generous game as far as meat, which is how you recover health. There's small meat that's found in a lot of candles, and then large meat, which is generally traditional wall meat from Castlevania. So he's able to route a lot of that in order for damage boosting.
It's nice to use a glitch right there where he's whipping and throwing the cross at the same time, just saving him just a minimal amount of time, not having to whip twice or use the sub weapon twice.
Yeah, the last screen of 3-3 is pretty difficult too, because the screen only scrolls one way. If he falls off the bottom of the screen, he's dead. And there's a lot of pretty easy ways to get knocked out by skeletons or bats. All right, then we need a little bit of quiet for the Vipers, the stage 3 boss, because he has an audio cue for this. Very nice.
Good kill.
Yeah, the two Vipers have their own hitboxes and take damage off the same pool but separately. So yeah, with the right cross placements, he's hitting both heads with the same crosses and doing it in one cycle.
I gotta say, some of these jumps that Joe is doing is scaring the heck out of me. He's not only is he doing hard mode, he's making it even look even harder. Just it's very it's like living on the edge, but it's very exhilarating.
And for this particular screen, I know he needs to be a little careful about his cross placements because this game doesn't really handle kind of hitting two different objects at the same time very well. So if he's hitting candles and enemies at the same time with his crosses, sometimes the game may prioritize the candle over the enemy, and he needs to react if that happens.
Coming up in a second here, we're going to have to ask you to get off the couch and get into the game for us.
Yes.
Here we have Puexel, not the one sitting next to me, but the one on your screen.
Yep. Another a boss pretty easily disposed of by a triple cross. And I don't think we've actually introduced ourselves, by the way, too, since we've got a nice auto-scroller showing off the Mode 7 powers of the Super Nintendo. Why don't we do so? So I'm Puexel. I just got destroyed by Joe running the game.
I'm Scavenger 216.
ShinDavid07.
And I am Just Defend.
I think this is a good time for a couple of donations.
Yeah. Absolutely. We have $5 from Need Sleep. I already donated more money than expected, but it is for a good cause, and someone dared me to jump on a $5 train. Can't ignore something like that. Thanks to all the staff, which makes this event so awesome every time. Thank you for your donation.
And then, and the main thing he was going for during 4-2 is just to try to minimize lag, because depending on how he deals with the Medusa heads, like fighting them especially, can create extra lag and waste time. Alright, so moving on to 4-3. This is another stage where lag management is a pretty big deal because of the scrolling background. You could see the lag when he grabbed the rosary to kill the skeletons there. So he picked up the invincibility potion and is just going to walk through as many as he can to reduce lag.
I'm not even the one playing. I can feel this lag.
Yeah, the Mode 7 plus all the extra sprites from exploding skeletons and the exploding wall things just really lagged the game out bad.
So now we're coming up on one of the more flashy speed tricks in Castlevania IV 2, which is the ceiling zip. So he's got a pretty tight climb to get up here before the rising block cycle cuts it off, and then he's going to try to spawn this bat with just the right timing so that he can do that. Nice.
Yeah.
That's a frame-perfect trick, by the way, too. He's basically getting boosted upwards by getting hit by the bat, right as he would normally get crushed by the ceiling. And instead of dying, he then gets clipped into the ceiling and zips forward. And I want to say that saves around 10 seconds because of cutting out, having to wait an extra cycle on those rising blocks.
That's correct.
Ooh.
So then we have Coronet, the final boss of Stage 4. I only got to be a mini boss.
You're still the main boss in our hearts.
And then after Coronet's defeated, there's a bit of randomness as far as being able to get what's called the fast orb grab. Let's see. Nice!
Hey!
Yeah. Whether he's able to get that depends entirely on just how high up the rising platform is when the orb appears, and then the platform disappears. So he has a very tight window to jump to grab the orb before it falls, and that saves a couple seconds too. So stage 5 is kind of a very different kind of a stage for this game because there's no boss, but I like to view it that the boss is the time limit because you're given a much shorter time limit than any other stage in the game, and kind of you're trying to rush to get to the castle before it runs out. The harpies that drop off flea men are random, and they're much bigger deal in hard mode because they're taking 2 hits instead of 1. So
yeah, these spawns are random, so he's getting trolled a little bit.
Fortunately, the gargoyles still only have 1 health. Nice, on to 5-2. It's a pretty straightforward stage, but because your health is generally very low after doing a lot of damage boosting through 5-1, he just needs to be really careful not to get hit, because I think most of the enemies here will kill him in 1 hit.
Just like this stage with stage 2, this is another stage where there's no like orb grab for this one, but it does transition to the harder part of the game, where starting from this point on, enemies take 1 more hit of damage on top of hard mode.
All right, so stage 6, one of the longer stages in the game. First screen of 6-1, fairly straightforward. Is just trying to avoid these axe knights and deal with the bats too. But then after this is one of the most difficult bits of movement in the entire run, which is the chandelier's room. So we're going to give Joe some quiet time to make some very, very insanely tight jumps and ring whip grabs.
Oh.
Ouch.
Yeah, like we said, making it across without having to wait any extra cycles on the chandeliers is very, very difficult. And like each swinging cycle is about 4.5 seconds, I want to say. So it does add up if you have to wait at all. And taking a death there is very unfortunate too, because of sending you all the way back to the start of 6-1. But once he gets past the chandelier room, there is a hidden room that I imagine he'll be going into in order to get his cross back.
Oh. This is just showing how absolutely rude hard mode.
Yeah, because I believe there are some more axe knights in this screen than in.
There's like an extra 2 of them.
Yeah, 1 or 2.
And he's having to deal with them without a sub-weapon at this point, too, which makes it even harder.
Yeah, those axe knights die relatively quick if you could stack crosses on them.
Yeah, but with just the whip, just fighting them would be really, really slow.
I don't know.
Sometimes no choice.
4 hits. Close. So having to wait an extra cycle there isn't too terrible. It's only about 6 seconds added on. That, in my opinion, is the hardest strat in speedrunning this game, one cycling the chandeliers.
Yeah, I know dismounting the whip ring is one of the harder parts of the whole room, too. I like this secret room just because of having the unique enemy, too, with the ghost dog.
He gets so sad when you take out his dog. I feel bad every time I watch it.
Right?
Gotta go fast, though. All right, so thanks to the secret room, and where he not just got the cross, but also used it on a lot of the candles there to get his double shot back quick. He's now back in full fighting shape to finish off stage 6. So coming up with, got a bat boost here to skip having to climb those stairs. Again, these bats do spawn based on Simon's height, so he is doing a lot of subtle manipulation all throughout the run as far as knowing where the bats spawn and just jumping in some cases to manipulate it. So I know for his 6-3, he does want to take extra care not to take damage from the red skeletons because they do more damage than the white ones. Jumping over these ghost hands that if you touch them, they grab you.
And they'll start attacking you, yeah. For that.
But yeah, those flashing skeletons don't do anything unless the ghost hands grab you. So getting through the coffin ring optimally, another pretty difficult part of stage 6.
Yeah.
How much damage you take from the coffin ring kind of sets up the rest of the screen too, as far as kind of how much caution needs to be taken with the randomly spawning ghost dancers.
Yeah, and the ghouls are like, they spawn RNG, rarely random.
Fortunately, there is some health coming up right before the boss. Alright, so say hi to Paula Abdul and Fred Asker. And say adieu. It's a flying boss that has the unfortunate tendency of moving kind of approximately the same speed as your crosses. So with the right cross throws, they're just constantly taking damage from kind of the returning crosses.
So the first screen here just has so many enemies, and you're just going to try to use as many of these crosses optimally. He's getting good luck. That's all.
Yeah, that Spear Knight it has random movement that can be a problem.
Yeah, there's just like, you see all these ghosts that are just, you want to jump over these axe knights, but these ghosts are like spawning almost perfectly to keep you from doing that. So you handle that perfectly. This last guy can be a little bit trolly, but ultimately going down the stairs.
Yeah, there is some meat on this screen, thankfully. Along with just being able to just drop all the way down if you know where the platforms are. So let's see about the Axe Knight.
Alright.
Yeah, so Axe Knights can either throw high or low axes, and if that particular one throws a low axe, then Joe can take a damage boost off of it to get onto the book faster.
Ooh, fear in that book.
Got these carpet critters, as I call them, and their gimmick is that if you're standing on one at certain points, it can push you up into spikes, which are instant death. So it needs to do some kind of tight ducks to avoid those. That unique enemy that just seems to solely exist in order to lag the game.
Hey, look how many sprites we can throw on screen.
Yeah, Super Castlevania IV was a pretty early Super Nintendo game, so Konami did a lot of stuff just to kind of show what they could do with the new hardware. A lot of like Stage 4 in particular.
Really looks like painting grabbed them a little bit and stuck for a little bit.
Very nice fight with Sir Draco. There's a couple patterns he can give that can be a little problematic, but I don't think we saw any of them. But now we're coming on to stage 8, which is one of the stages that I'm sure pretty much everybody that's played this game has gotten stuck on for a while too, because Stage 8 is a torture chamber dungeon where pretty much everything kills you in one hit. Everything with spikes on it is instant death.
And there's just a lot of really, really precise, tight damage boosts in this stage, and every one of them you're usually a pixel and or a frame away from death, even if you pull it off perfectly.
If anyone's wondering why the acid is red instead of green, by the way, too, it's because he's playing the Japanese version of the game. There's no gameplay differences between the two, but there's a lot of minor graphical changes, and then the color of the acid and blood is the big one.
There were a lot of like religious symbols removed in terms of like crosses on tombstones and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Ooh!
Taking care with a lot of these instant death spikes, and I don't blame him. Nice trick there to wait for that acid droplet in order to despawn a second bone dragon that would normally load right afterwards. Getting some wall meat there to get almost up to full.
Yeah, it's such a relief to get that wall meat in hard mode. Just getting your life all the way back up to where you want it to be.
Alright, so first screen of 8-2, kind of like 7-1. Just if you know where the platforms are, you can drop through, and you can also duck, you can crouch walk in this game and use that to clip through stairs. Very nice there. That's actually fairly tight as far as getting down to avoid having to either wait a cycle on the spikes or damage boost through them. All right, and then after these lances here, we have the Vegas Bridge, which is a randomly appearing and disappearing bridge, and whether he has to wait for platforms or not is totally random and a huge run killer in PB or world record attempts. But after all of the horrors and pain of Stage 8, fortunately, Frankenstein's monster, not too big a problem with the cross.
So after Stage 8 comes Stage 9, and this one is one of the lengthier stages. Very nice to look at, but it's going to be throwing a lot of...
Yeah, a lot of these golden skeletons can be problematic too. Like I know with this one coming up right here, if it moves left, you want to make sure it dies.
Everything the game can throw at Joe right now, it's going to do it. It's going to be the lag. It's going to be all these projectiles of bats. It's coming at him real fast.
Yeah, for this screen right here too, these crumbling platforms lag the game a lot too, so just having to deal with that is very challenging.
Oh, baby. It's always
Yeah, I think there's more bats here too.
That's actually always nerve-wracking because those projectiles are still on the screen. It's just lagging everything.
Yeah, so we let the coffin push him forward so he could clear the bone dragon before he ran out of invincibility frames.
Yeah, that's a nice health strat. He's throwing that cross so he hits the candle. He doesn't have to stop. Oh,
nice
spike jump.
That is pixel perfect. I can't tell you.
Yeah, I know. Shoutouts to a runner named 2Cat for finding a buffer set up for it by throwing crosses, which Joe did.
Don't try this at home.
Yeah.
I swear to you, you try that, you will lose your life.
Yeah, and then just like the end of Stage 3 and the end in 9-2, the screen only scrolls up. So there's a couple places, again, where if he gets knocked away by a bad hit from a skeleton or one of their bones, then that's death.
Coming up on this next boss, Saf Bat, he's going to have to deliver a specific amount of hits when the bat does its swoop down towards the player so he can break the bat apart at a specific time and keep the
22
together.
hits is when Zap's bat breaks up into 3 smaller bats, and he really wants to arrange it so that as soon as the bat splits up, he can throw 3 crosses and then kill the 3 small bats in one salvo.
That height looks good.
That looks good.
Yep.
Very nice.
Excellent.
And a nice Triforce to boot, too. Yeah, and another little minor thing, too, is that he wants to end stages where he has this countdown with as close to 0 hearts as he can, too, just because the game converts your hearts into bonus points at the end of most stages, and he wants to minimize that time as much as possible. So stage A is the kind of obligatory clock tower stage in a Castlevania game. Yet another stage where there's a lot of lag that's only kind of made more so because of the extra enemies for playing on hard mode. I can just hear the Super Nintendo crying out in pain at all this work.
At least they were smart enough to put the sound CPUs separate so it doesn't lag the music.
Yeah, that would be unforgivable to have Bloody Tears be...
What?
Nice
Come on.
ring.
Whatever, man. Come on. Get out of here with
That's
that.
clearly cheating.
Yeah, so again, he's able to do that whip ring glitch by jumping over the ring and whipping down so that it kind of pushes him away in the same direction.
Yeah, that's a very tight window to hit that ring.
Yeah, and then these Bone Dragons and Axe Knights all have a lot of health normally, and I think even more so in hard mode, so he's just trying to avoid everything, either naturally or through damage boosting.
I think the game was actually running at about 3 frames a second for a little bit there.
I love that floor clip just from getting the whip ring, too.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah.
All right, so A-2 is pretty trivial, just a bunch of skeletons. So now we're coming up on probably the most random boss in the game, which is the mummy. So there's 4 different spawn points. Unfortunately, you didn't get either the left or right edge of the screen, which is optimal for going for a 1 cycle. Because the crosses return to you after hitting the edge of the screen. So if the mummy spawns either at the far left or the far right, he's able to just stack the crosses fast enough to kill it in 1 cycle. And on top of the spawn patterns, it's random whether the mummy does bandages or fireballs, too, and that's a factor in getting the 1 cycle kill, too. It's only 1 stage left, although it's a doozy. Stage B has some of the tightest jumps and platforming in the run, followed by 4 final boss fights. We've got a crumbling bridge here with bats that spawn and follow you. I mean, the bats aren't going to hit him if he keeps moving, but he's going to try to diagonal whip to kill as many as possible to reduce lag. Along with just accumulating as many hearts as he can, too, because he has 4 bosses to kill to end the run, and he just wants as many hearts as he can for going for quick kills with the cross on them.
Casually, this is a very brutal part of the game.
Yes.
Any mistakes and you just get trapped and will inevitably die by a big spiked wheel.
Yeah, because if he falls off any of these falling staircases, then that's death. Basically, if you can't make a jump to get back up.
It's also important to note he's collecting big hearts along the way. That skeleton's such a troll. Very nicely done. Oh, here we go. Joe's rolling
Right.
deep.
Rolling super deep.
Yeah. And this is the last kind of place where there's extra enemies from hard mode that present challenge in the speedrun.
Oh!
Ooh. Yeah, unfortunately, taking a death here is very, very bad because of losing the cross. He is able to get a backup one and actually do a pretty cool trick in order to get his multiplier back too. Because again, you need to get 10 hits with a sub weapon in order to get a double or triple shot for it, and it doesn't really work out to be able to get a triple back after the cross. But once you've spawned the multiplier, the game doesn't care what weapon it goes towards. So he picks up the dagger here and then uses it to get hits. And then optimally what's going to happen is that he's going to spawn the triple shot and then get the cross and then get the triple shot, basically. So then he has the triple shot cross for the final 4 boss fights. So make sure not to get killed by the spike wheel, though. The candle on the right has the backup cross on it. Unfortunately, the math with the hits didn't quite work out to get the triple. But having a cross is better than not for the final bosses. You can at least get a double in time, and then he will be able to, if he needs to, use a kind of a well-known secret to get his triple for Dracula. These jumps are so tight in order to make it to the left edge before you hit the spikes in the ceiling.
Those spikes have some really misleading hitboxes.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got Slogra, the first of the final 4 bosses. He's gonna have to kind of improv this fight a little bit too because of not having his triple cross. Because there's a I believe a 6-cycle quick kill that he normally goes for as far as kind of stacking the crosses inside Slogra's hitbox. Because the way you're intended to do this is just to do kind of this, basically, where you get one hit per jump that Slogra does. And with good cross placement, you can turn like a 20-cycle fight or so casually into a 6.
Slogar looking really generous today.
Yeah, because once his spear breaks, he can either he does that beak charge attack, and he can do it immediately after landing, which is really dangerous.
Next up is Gaibon here.
Probably the easiest of the final 4 bosses. Very nice. The next up is Death, the Grim Reaper, and this is probably going to be the most difficult of the 3 to do without having enough hearts and crosses to do the quick kill. He should, with his 7 hearts, he should be able to still at least get some free hits right at the start.
We got some bad luck right there.
And there's some randomness with Death too, whether he does that swoop attack or kind of descends and then does this suction to try to pull you in. Very nice. Okay, a little minor time save Joe's going to go for too is actually to try to jump to the left. Very nice. When the screen would normally freeze him, and that saves like a second or so, just pure movement. All right, so all that's left before the end of the game is the Dracula fight. So yeah, in order to be kind of fully armed to fight Dracula, he's going to this secret area here, which gives you max hearts, max health, and triple shot cross.
Spare no expense.
I remember reading about that in Nintendo Power back in the day and having my mind blown.
So the idea on this fight is going to be to preemptively throw crosses so that you can stack as many cross hits on Dracula in addition to your whip hits per cycle as you can.
I think some kind of rough RNG as far as where Dracula is spawning. Some of the edges of the screen are somewhat bad as far as the number of hits he's able to get per cycle. Although every fourth teleport, I believe Dracula will spawn directly on top of you too, so you can use that to your advantage to manipulate his position. Dracula gives you snacks mid-fight too, which is nice.
Yeah, really generous.
He's a generous host. He wants to make sure you're not hungry.
Exactly.
Now he can eat our crosses.
Then time isn't going to be at the last hit. It's when Joe gets the final orb. All right, and that's it.
And that's
Castlevania.
All right,
4
crowd, can we get one final orb as he's grabbing this?
I want to say Joe's a very brave man for bringing back hard mode. Definitely not the easiest thing to do.
Just to beat this at all,
Any
much less to
marathon.
do it in under 40 minutes.
All right, guys, let us hear it.
Time.
And with that, that is TV4 hard mode. Well played to Joe. This is not an easy run, and he made it look very, very much so.
He put in a lot of hard work. It's a pretty rough category to be going through, but he did it.
I think that's it, unless anybody else has any shout-outs.
Got anything you want to say, Joe?
I just want to say thanks to everyone for being here. Thanks to Games Done Quick for giving me the opportunity to run here. I've done multiple runs over the years here. Some of the best friends that I've made in my entire life have been from this entire community. So if everyone else feels the same way, just give one more round of applause. Just not for this, but for everybody. Clap for everybody. Everybody here.
Let's hear it one more time for Joe and his absolutely amazing run of Super Castlevania IV.